What does it take to be a successful entrepreneur? A dangerous amount of coffee and a ton of grit. My name is Jason Tracy, and every week I interview business leaders to share their stories, life lessons, failures, and advice with you. Welcome to Coffee and Grit. What is up? What is up? What is up? I had to laugh going back through and listening to my intro. And it's like, do you have, you need a dangerous amount of coffee? Do you have that dangerous amount of coffee? Are you ready to go this morning? I was up at 5:30 this morning brewing coffee for an event. So we do travel totes for people that are doing events. And so one of my friends was doing an in-person Serious Net group. And so he reached out to me and was like, hey, can I get some coffee? And so I was up this morning brewing coffee to fill the tote and go out and deliver this morning. So I am heavily caffeinated and ready to go. So I hope you guys are ready. I have another difference maker in the studio today. Obviously, Christel Meyer from the Oak Point Stroll publication. I got a chance to meet Christel. Wow, it's probably been almost a year now thinking about it, which is so crazy how quickly a year flies by. But I remember Christel came into my office and was telling me her story, and I'm like, all of this stuff, and talking about sales and some of the things that are like preventing from sales being like a sensitive person, for example, that we've talked about on the show before. And so I'm excited to talk about some of that stuff. But Christel, she was telling me stuff, was really uncovering a lot of her story and telling me some of her story. And I was like, I would love to talk about that stuff. And she was like, no, I don't want to tell a story, like uncomfortable. I was like, we all are. And I'm only saying this because there's so many of you out there that have such an amazing story, and you've survived and thrived through so many obstacles, or you just have a really cool, touching story to tell, and you don't think so. You don't think that anybody would be interested. And so I got a really cool call from Christel a couple months ago, and she was like, all right, I heard Abigail, who is also a guest that's on the podcast. Her episode doesn't launch until December. So, but she was like, I'm inspired. If she can tell her story, I can tell mine, right? And so, Christel, I'm super excited to have you on and tell the story.
Thanks for having me. I think we met at a CGC grand opening.
Yes.
And that was, I'd never heard of you. And then one day I was like looking through YouTube. I'm like, wait, that's the guy I met at CGC. This is crazy. He's got a podcast. That's so cool.
I remember that so specifically now that you say that. Yeah. It was probably like last October. So It was over a year ago.
It was. It's crazy how the world just kind of like keeps spinning. And then you run into all these people and you're like, oh my God, hi. And
This was so awesome. And do you see that like with the publication and with you kind of being everywhere, that people kind of recognize you everywhere you go? You talk about the signature glasses.
Yeah, not quite yet. We're not there yet, but
we're going to get you there.
You were going to get me there. Yeah. But the residents that we've highlighted on the cover, of course. Yeah, I'm like, oh, I recognize you. Hey, how's it going? Especially, I don't have their publication, the Leonards. Ross is always walking, and so I see him all the time. I'm like, hey, Ross. It's like, I think I've seen him 6 times walking. So it's kind of cool.
That's super awesome. When you can see everybody, the people on and I think that's the biggest thing, like being involved in the community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's one of the benchmarks that makes this type of publication so different, is that we have these gatherings where we try to incorporate everybody in the community and all the sponsors in the community. So it's really, I'm a party planner and a publisher, and, I'm doing a lot, but it's really fun.
So let's dive into this first. Yeah. And I know there's a lot to unpack and just natural conversation, but how did this start?
So it's kind of funny how it literally landed in my lap. I've been a physical therapist my whole life, went into a different field over COVID, and then I went on my own. And as an esthetician, I got licensed. And so I was answering an ad for my business to a local stroll that is in South Lyon in Hidden Lake. And I was talking to Jenny, and she was just like, hey, if it's not a good time, that's fine. It's not for everybody. And that is really where Stroll is at. Like, if it's not now, it may be down the road. If it's a no, that's fine too. So I was just like, I'll look into, that. She's like, have you ever thought of doing something like what I do. And I was just like, well, what do you do? So, I inquired about it, and it was kind of a rigorous vetting, you would say. Like, there were 4 interviews, an hour long. And I got to the 3rd interview, and I knew the 4th interview was the last one. And so I made it through that, and I was just like, okay, if I make it to the 4th, cool.
It's meant to be.
It's meant to be. I wasn't even trying. I was just like, whatever. But I must have the perfect personality for it. But yeah, so it was definitely grit getting to be published. Definitely.
Well, and it's like coming into that, what was the driving force? What made you think like this would be interesting? Because this would be something I'd want to do. Because I mean, you're over here, and I think we're going to dive into this. But
yeah,
it takes a whole lot of different skills and just a different to like now go out and sell this or be the party planner and do all these different things.
Right, which I have 0 experience. Well, I can't say that now, year end.
Yeah,
I
now
have
you're
experience.
Yeah,
but at the time I had none. Like, maybe I planned an event on Facebook and 5 people showed. It's like, cool.
Yeah.
Now it's just like, oh, we're doing this. I don't know. I mean, it's one of those things where I just found it really interesting. I found the community aspect of it, and being part of Brighton for so long. I've lived here for 23 years. I thought, oh my gosh, this could be something fun to do until I retire. Like, it's, as a physical therapist, you're heavy lifting, and my back was going. And then I love being an esthetician, don't get me wrong, but it's definitely for a younger body. It's really hard on the body. And when this showed up, I was just like, I don't leave a door unopened. And that was something that me and my husband took a lot of time on talking about. And I really felt like if I left it unopened, that I was going to regret it. And then I was like, I can't let this go. And so I had to pursue it. And then I went through the interviews, back to that first conversation. But it's the driving force behind it. It was literally, I was compelled to do it. Any other answer than that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's like something really perked your ears, and I love how it comes back. And I said that to comment about the community, but that was one of the big driving forces in thinking about really being able to dive in to this community that you've been a part of for 23 years.
Yeah. And it's just, I don't know, it's been kind of a gift. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's hard. Being a publisher, a salesperson, event planner. I do have an event planner that's helping me now, but it's a lot.
Yeah.
And it's definitely, I call it a love letter to Oak Point each month, only because I'm putting everything I have into it. And, and they're loving it. They're texting me saying, oh my gosh, I found the mascot.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit about what Stroll Oak Point is? What this is?
Yeah. So Stroll. So I am a franchisee owner of this publication. So I own the publication. And the cool thing is I didn't have to buy anything to be a franchisee owner. I literally had to put the sweat equity into it. Mm-hmm. And so once I got it up and running, that's when you start your career, I suppose, your business. So Stroll itself there's 500 publications nationwide. And we go into luxury communities where businesses want to spread the word and create more of that, building trust, being a part of a community newsletter. And that's kind of like the whole concept, where businesses who want business want to be a part of Stroll. Mm-hmm. But then the other side of things is this is their social magazine. So they get to put whatever they want into it, except political stuff, and share community events. It could be, a student writer, like this is what I found around town. It could be, a knitting circle, or it could be a book club, or whatever they want. This is their newsletter. And so that's kind of like, right now hey, do you have a story? Hey, do you have a story? Ultimately, I would love to have like a year's worth of stories, whereas
Yeah.
it's like they're just bombarding me with stories. That would be beautiful.
What does that look like now? Is it? I imagine at the beginning, were you writing everything? Like, how was it hard to get those stories? And
Yeah. So, Stroll's been around for 20 years, so they have everything in place for when you go to print, and it's just like,
a whole system,
a
essentially.
whole system. And so, training, coaches, everything. So they're a very supportive company. And then they have like these forms that we can email to, like questionnaires that we can email to the residents, and that there it's, what is your pet's name? How old is your pet? What is the breed of your pet? So then I take that, or, I take that and write an article, or they can write their own article. And it's just kind of like a blueprint, like, these are the requirements, just to kind of tell us about, your family, your pet, recipes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So they make it really easy. There's a whole system to it.
Make it really easy. And that's the whole goal, is if something's too hard, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I use Jot Forms, which is super easy. It's just click, click, click. You can even upload your pictures into it. It's really nice.
That is super awesome. So I was going to say, did you have any kind of journalistic background or?
No.
Yeah. Do you love it? Do you
Yeah, I mean, I enjoy it, definitely, but it's definitely one of those things where you have the little devil inside telling you that this isn't good enough, and
Yep.
So I
We
have
all
an
have that
editor
self-doubt.
now, editor in chief. My husband, he's a teacher, so he goes through. He's like, okay, I'll fix punctuation, but that's it. So our goal is to have the residents rate it as much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
How's that going?
That's going good. Yeah.
That's super awesome.
Yeah. We just did a photo shoot with an adorable family, the Smiley family. And
Literally,
that's their last name. Such a beautiful family, 2 boys and a girl and dog. I mean, and their adorable story is that Carrie is having her children grow up in the house that she grew up in. She purchased the home that she grew up in. So
that's
it's kind of
so cool.
Yeah.
That's so cool. So, like, if anybody recognizes the Putkellas, they also have their own podcast, and they have been on Coffee and Grit. So that's why Angela and Don would be recognizable for our audience here. And so when you have the family on, and then there's an article on that family on the inside.
Yeah,
And they write that article typically?
Typically, yeah. And, I always say, do you want me to write it? Or if I don't hear back from them, I'll write one, and then I will send kind of like in their own words. So that's in place now. So, yeah.
That is so cool.
I know. It's fun.
It's so much fun. And I see you everywhere. And that's why I said
know.
it was like, being involved in the community. And when we first talked, it was like, really, that's that fun stuff, is being able to build a community. For me, starting my business, it was like, all these 7 years later, it's the relationships that have come that have been my favorite part.
Exactly. And I know it's a job, but I mean, I tell my clients, like, this is my job. I get to have coffee with you and talk to you.
Yeah.
And learn about your business. And if you want to be a part of this is great. If not, I gained a friend and maybe a sponsor. So it's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's always
Just
possibilities.
taking that pressure off of myself.
And I always look at, like, our businesses are really that vehicle to be able to create the life that we want.
Yeah.
And a lot of people look at that like maybe that's like wealth or whatever it is, but it's that vehicle. Again, my business gives me that reason to be out in the community. I had Ron Jess on a while back, and he was a podcast out here. Ron's one of those guys that's everywhere too. But he was talking about having his podcast and people laughing at him. Like when he first started doing it, like his family was like, "You suck at this. Like, why are you doing it?" And that kind of thing. And I know, like, but Ron, I love his attitude. He's like, screw you guys, I'm doing it anyways. Like he's like pushing forward. He's not beating himself up about it. But he was like one of those things of like, I now have this platform. He's had like Lance Parrish from the Tigers on, Darren McCarty. He had Mickey Redmond on, the Red Wings announcer. And we were talking about Mickey Redmond specifically. And he was like, I wouldn't have had like any other time I would have had no platform in order to have a conversation with Mickey Redmond.
Exactly.
But now I can say, man, Mickey Redmond, I'd love to have you on my podcast. And it creates now, like this guy's out living the dream. He's golfing with Darren McCarty. He's going to events with Mickey Redmond. Like, he's able to create his life that he wants off of something that he's doing.
Yeah, that's so cool.
It's so cool.
So cool. Yeah, I've met him just a couple times. And he was telling me about his pickles. And
his pickles, like, yes.
Okay, Ron, I'm not going to. Like, that's cool. And then I found out that he had a podcast after I saw him on yours. I was like, oh my God. Okay. But I had no idea. That is really, really cool.
Yeah. And the only reason I knew about him is because he does this podcast here. And then I met him at the Chamber Business Expo.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that's where the pickles. Yep. My wife came around the corner like, there's a guy over there doing a podcast and he has pickles. I'm like,
pickles.
What's his name?
A lot of people like pickles. I'm not a fan of pickles. Sorry.
Different podcast.
Different podcast.
So one of the things I loved is we were talking about when that first conversation we were having and talking about like just different signs, when you started this business and you're looking and you're like, it just kind of piqued my interest. But then as you got into it, what were some of those things? I was like, this may be like I'm in the right place.
Well, funny thing is I never thought I was in the right place. It didn't take that until probably 3 months ago that I was in the right place. Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
I don't know. So my dad passed away when I was 22, and I've always felt like he was the one pushing me through the doors of different positions because jobs always kind of came easy. Like, oh, we don't need to interview you. Here, you have the job. I'm like, seriously? Okay. Like, you don't even know me. I'm going to be doing physical therapy. Okay. And so I would always be like, thanks, Dad. Type thing. And then that's kind of the feeling I had with this. Like I felt like I was being pushed or carried. And when they told me in that third interview that I would be starting on March 27th, that's my dad's birthday. And I was just like, okay. And then when I started Ramp Up, that's what it's called, to get to print, I did it for 5.5 months. Of just grit, of getting the no's and the, yeses, and then a lot of no's. And it was just one of those things where it's just, you're like constantly holding up a brick building that is so heavy. And you're like, can I do this? Like, this just seems so much. And then I got to print and I had like, what is it called? Where it's like, you can't do this.
Self-doubt, you're limiting your little voice. And
yeah, you can't do this. Like, I wasn't even excited. I just felt all the pressure. I was just like, oh my gosh, how am I going to do this? And then I just, okay, you got this far. You can keep doing. And I started having severe anxiety, like debilitating. Turned out it was my thyroid, but I mean, talk about... Like my husband said, you're crying all the time. If you don't want to do this, just don't do it. You can not do it. Mm-hmm. And I was just like, but there's parts of it I love. It's just, I don't want to start crying. It's just the parts that I love at the time were much smaller than the other parts. And it was just like really, and I've never been that person that, I want to be the richest person in Brighton. Never been that person ever.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just like, I just want to, have a cool business, and make friends. That's the problem. So finding that, and it really, I'm almost quit 6 months ago. And if I wouldn't have, I'm like, I can't. I wouldn't let myself.
So awesome.
Yeah. And it's just that constant holding the building up.
Yeah.
It can be really exhausting.
So what happened when you didn't quit?
What happened when I didn't quit?
Yeah.
I don't know. The residents were kind of like reaching out, saying, how much they loved it. We were having some events, and the residents that came, they were like, we just enjoy this so much. It's so much fun. Thank you so much, Christel, for, bringing our community together, all the things that you've been doing. I want you to know that we see it. And that was really like my aha, like, okay, yes, I have sponsors, but who I'm ultimately supporting is, I almost don't even feel like I'm supporting myself. I'm supporting a community. And within that, my sponsors are being seen, and I have a business and having a reputation. That was a big part for me too, is having a positive representation of myself. And if I'm like bawling in the corner,
who's the
really
lady over there having a
myself.
breakdown?
I'm having a nervous breakdown. It's really not all about me. And so it's just been a lot. It's been a lot. And I'm sure there's a lot of small businesses that are just like throwing in the towel. I just can't do this. It's just too much. It's too big.
Well, and that's why I have people on the podcast that are people that are making a difference, but they're in all facets of their business, right? Is because stories are data as well. When we're listening and we hear people that are like, people can resonate.
Yeah.
How many people are listening right now that are sitting on that edge like, I want to quit right now?
Yeah.
And it's really a deep dive. Is it something that you love and you can get behind, and it checks those buckets for you, creating that community, creating the life that you love?
Right. Yeah. And so, I got a year under my belt, and I've done my first year, like not in prison camp, but I've accomplished a year. And I look back at where I was when I first went to print. I look back when I signed my agreement, and I am really trying to be more present in not letting what I feel people's expectations are, because it's not necessarily I'm getting expectations, what I feel that their expectations are. And that's really what was so heavy. And to be able to let that go is huge. And to be able to, say to a business, if I'm having a meeting, and just say, you know what, I don't think this is a good fit, rather than be desperate and, oh, it doesn't matter. Yeah, it matters. It matters to me. Yeah, it matters to me.
It really does matter who you partner with and work with, and if they're a good fit or not.
Right. Yeah. So, in that aspect, I've had a huge amount of growth, but also, those moments where, that reflection, and to be able to reflect back to almost, I was in my chrysalis stage of being a butterfly. And I just got out, just becoming a butterfly, ready to pollinate. It's just like one of those things where you're metamorphosing into the person that you want to be. And almost like, I don't know, what's the word, manifesting who I want to be and putting it into place.
And spoiler alert, it doesn't feel comfortable when you start.
No.
Right. And I want to say this and emphasize it, because this is normal. This is normal feelings. You went from helping people. I remember when we sit and talked first, you're like, I'm helping people, I'm helping them get better in this physical therapy sense. And now I feel like I'm selling people, or trying to pin them down, and it's and we got to look at from sales, is that serving, or what you're doing is you're serving people at the highest level.
Yeah.
You're serving this family at the highest level. You're then serving the community at the highest level. And you're getting the proof of that.
Yeah.
When people are coming to you and saying, this means so much to me.
Yeah.
But it's not comfortable. But how much growth is there in that last year?
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
What have you learned about yourself in the last year?
That I can. Okay. So I learned I need to get out of my head. I was too much in my head. I was overthinking everything. I wasn't being myself. And honestly, being more myself is more comfortable than trying to be someone who, potentially could be a great salesperson, which, nobody wants to be around that person.
Yeah, exactly. I got a deal for you.
I got a deal for you. Yeah. So, and then also framing it in a way, and, this is an amazing community. Anybody who lives in Brighton knows where Oak Point is.
Absolutely.
They have a great country club, and this goes to a lot of residents and a lot of small business owners themselves.
And I love how it's specialized to jump on to what you're talking about as far as this goes. There's a lot of value in niches, and can people get into something that goes to all of Brighton? Sure. But how much of it then actually gets read versus something that's so niched down into a community and it means more to them versus a publication that goes to all of Livingston County.
Right. And, those types of publications are great.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they have a need for what they offer. But I always say in my presentation, like, do you remember the last billboard you saw? Like, do you remember what the postcard in your mail said? These residents saved this publication. And there's been stories where someone left the publication as a sponsor, and then that resident thought that they went out of business.
Yeah.
And they were like, well, we just haven't seen them, so we thought that they went out of business. So in that aspect, being seen, it doesn't necessarily mean that, you're going to get business, but you're being seen. And for a resident to be like, I thought they went out of business. Well, guess what? If they think you're out of business, nobody's going to give you a call.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, and so it's the reason why that advertising works is because, and it's the same reason why I create content, right? And I put content out on social media because people see it.
Yeah.
And then I go out in public and people are like, oh, hey, there's that guy, right? That does the podcast. And then somebody starts talking about something and they think of me, right? Yeah. And it's that same exact thing. Like when you see somebody over and over and over again, and then you see their van out in public or their truck drive by, you're like, oh, that's that publication that they're always in the stroll. And then somebody needs a pest removal company. They're like, oh, that company.
Yeah,
you think of them.
Yeah, definitely, and that's the hope for it. And I hope that all of the residents in Oak Point look at this as, before they go to Google and look for someone, because the sponsors see value in this and the residents see it as well.
Well, it's like the kind of the people that are investing in your community, right? When they're in here.
Yeah. Yeah. And, we have a sponsor index in it. And then there's this free opportunity for the residents. If they don't want to be an advertiser, they can be a part of the resident business guide in the back. So it's a free little nod. Kind of looks like the sponsor index in the beginning.
Super cool.
Yeah.
Well, and then sponsors can come to the events, right?
Yeah, so sponsors can come to the events. We actually had a really cute event. It was a trunk or treat event, and the country clubs tried for years to have a trunk or treat, but nobody really wanted to take part in it. And so I reached out to all my advertisers, and we had probably maybe 15 to 20 cars. A couple, I think 3 residents participated as well. And then I think we had 150 kids.
Wow.
I know. So it was really cool. We coordinated it with the Halloween party that they have for the country club. So it was really cool. And my goal is to have it separated. And this is just, for the time being, and then to kind of like have an offshoot where it's just stroll. So the communities can, have their own little thing.
That's super cool. Yeah. And I always love things for businesses. It's great to do advertising, again, all the stuff that we were just talking about, and that recognition and seeing somebody to the point where when they're not there, you're like, are they out of business? What happened? But then as a business, being able to get an opportunity to go and interact with the community and be a part of that community, and, trunk or treating again, taking care of the kids and having an event like that and being out there in that stage, you get a chance to shake hands and all that kind of stuff and build relationships.
Yeah, and actually I have coffee with residents quite often, and I was having coffee with a resident named Tara, and she was just like, I want to be a part of the resident business guide. And I said, let's meet and I can hear what you like about the publication. And so we were just, chatting at the Brighton Coffee House, and she's just like, my furnace isn't working. And I said, Tara, I just signed a heating company, and they're great, Precision Comfort. Check them out. And she
Nice
called
way to
me.
shout them out, by the way.
Yeah, I know, right? Hey, Ron.
Yeah.
And so it was really cool. She called me a couple days later. She's like, thank you so much. They were wonderful. They came out. I said, hey, Tara, can you write out a little email and I could put it in the publication? Because anytime someone uses one of the sponsors, I want to shout them out in the publication, sponsor resident reviews of our sponsors. So
phenomenal idea.
Yeah. Just kind of have it all kind of circle back,
That's so awesome for so many reasons. One, it engages and shows the readers that, hey, there are people that are using the services here, but testimonials are huge.
Oh, yeah.
And to be able to then, if somebody sees that article and then they see the testimonial, oh, that is a good company.
Yeah. So it was really cool.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
So since you've kind of dropped, got out of your own way and started to become yourself, what have you seen happen in the relationships and in your community engagement?
Well, so what I've actually found out about myself is people like me for me. And I don't know. It's just people are getting the authentic me rather than this. I just felt like a kid in the corner, oh my God. Should I go talk to them? What if they don't like me?
Yeah.
Stupid.
Well, so I remember when one of our first conversations, talking about that sales and, it's hard if you've never done sales before and the sales training and people tell you a certain way to do it. I was just telling somebody today my story and getting into sales and how I thought I would be good at it because there were certain things people would come up and tell me their life story or people would do my work for me or just random things like that.
Yeah.
And so I thought I'm going to be really good at sales. And then I got there and they taught me a way to be
And you're like,
in a way to
"That's not
respond
me."
and things to say, and it didn't feel comfortable. And I always relate it back, and it's good timing, thinking of the old Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer cartoon that would come out at Christmas time, and
Wearing your black nose.
wearing your black nose.
Yeah.
And it's uncomfortable. That's exactly what he said. It's uncomfortable. And he's going out there and being himself. And at the end of the day, the kids didn't like him anyways, really.
Yeah.
They all knew that there was something there going on. And then he goes out and, he's rejected from his community. It wasn't until he embraced himself and became confident with himself and said, you know what, I'm going to shine this red nose as bright as possible.
Yeah.
That all of a sudden people were like, that guy's valuable.
Yeah.
And so I love that, because it's as soon as we put down that wall and realize that either people are going to love us for us or they're going to hate us for us. The cool thing about the people that hate us is they usually remove themselves from our life. We don't have to worry about them anymore.
Yes. Or you help them remove them from your life.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's funny because, becoming the business owner that I want to be is I want to be like a mini chamber. I want to cultivate relationships with my sponsors and be able to be like, hey, here's their card. Give them a call. They're great. I met with them personally. Everybody in that publication I have met personally over a cup of coffee or through a Zoom. And so from that, I have walked away from many contracts on a table because I just didn't feel right. And being a sensitive person,
yes,
knowing that I'm leaving money on the table, that I'm doing it from the heart because anybody else would be like, oh yeah, sign on the dotted line. I'm like,
but it's important.
It is.
It's
for
important.
My health.
Absolutely. For all of it, from that, because again, you're thinking about serving and taking care of people. And if you're just throwing people in for money and then your residents are getting a horrible experience out of it.
Yeah.
That's more stress to deal with. I always thought about it like from being in sales my whole life and watching salespeople that would lie to their customers or like stretch truths or not tell them about things. And it's like that stress they have to deal with afterwards. Like I would watch my counterparts as somebody would pull into the parking lot and then run to the back, you know, and hide and be like, tell them I'm not here. And it's like, I don't want to live like that. I don't want to live like that.
No. And, you know, it really, I belong to the Brighton Chamber.
Yeah.
And so that's really been an eye-opener on how you can touch people's lives. And I was missing an appointment. And so one of my new contracts that I signed, I thought, you know, I'm going to reach out to James with my wife's candles. So you've met him, correct?
Yeah. Yep.
And I texted him. I said, you know, I'm not going to be able to be at the chamber meeting on Monday. Would you like to sit in for me? And he's like, sure. And it happened to be at Justin Mulholland's new office, which is Blue 42.
Yeah. Okay.
Shout out to Justin.
Shout out to Justin. Shout out to Cody Powers, who I know just recently made a really cool table for him.
Yeah. Yep. Shout out to Kid. And that's what I knew Cody was there. And I'm like, oh, you know what? This is going to be a great meeting. And so it was at Justin's place. And so I knew Cody was going to be there pitch hitting for Justin Lee, Exceptional Mortgages, who's also a sponsor. And James was there, and he was telling everybody about his business, how they're starting to expand, and they want to do more on content for businesses themselves. And Justin's like, I'll take 200 candles. And that's when I knew the power of what I can do for a business is to be able to align them with difference makers to make differences in their lives. Because ultimately, the people I surround myself with are small businesses. I have very few larger businesses. And to be able to support them through getting great leads like that, that is huge and exciting.
It's fun. I spend my time, same exact people, and I love it. And so actually the guy that I was talked about at the beginning, delivering the coffee to, that was James. So we dropped it off at my wife's candles this morning. So
that's funny.
Yeah. So I love how it all comes around. But it's like, again, when you spend that time in that community, and those are the people that I love spending time with, corporations are a little bit harder to impact. You know, it's hard to impact a company that's all structured.
Yes.
It's so easy to make an impact and to see that impact on a business where you know the owner. You're a small business and there's not all the layers, and it's so cool when you can see that impact.
Yeah. It really is. And I take pride in it. And so I think that was really in a nutshell, where I was just like, okay, I'm going to start treating this like a mini chamber. And I'm going to really, you know, each resident I meet with, I'm just going to say, hey, what experiences have you had? And how can we help either build the publication or, you know, help the sponsors in our publication? This is for you to use and utilize.
It's serving people at the highest level.
It is. That's
why I love it.
Kind of like I had my aha. That was my aha.
I love it. And how much easier is it to do that?
Yeah, it really is. It was really cool. And so our last chamber meeting, I was doing a presentation. I was presenting. And I had done a presentation a year ago when I first started. I'm like, you know, I'm going to go more on an engaging aspect of events. And so I just did all the events we had and just kind of talked about each event, you know, what kind of transpired, you know, what the residents loved. And I think a majority of them were like, when are the events and how can we be a part of it? So it was that engagement, like, oh, okay, I finally see. Like you say it, but until they see pictures of an event.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
Like residents dressed up like in costumes. Adults.
It's fun. That's fun. It's fun. And it makes it like this whole time I've thought about like the Miss Roper romp, you know, and like, it's like
I was a Mrs. Roper.
Oh, I remember. It's like, but it's like those things that you get to do. Like, would you have done that, or would you even known about it if you didn't have your business?
That was on Facebook happenings, the Brighton happenings.
Okay.
I would have known about that, but would I have done it if I wasn't in this? Like,
'Cause I know you went with a group of people that you
Yes.
probably met through
yes,
business.
Yes. So it's kind of funny.
Isn't it? It's like, and I said this at the beginning, but my favorite part is the relationships. My favorite
Yeah.
part about entrepreneurship is, for me, and my journey has been the relationships. I mean, you look at this as episode 193, I want to say, or 192, somewhere in there. So it's like, even just, there's been some repeat guests, but I've essentially had over 180 relationships and people that have been on this podcast that,
That's crazy. That's awesome.
it's awesome, but it's that's my favorite part, again, because you have, like, building these relationships, being able to, again, be a vehicle and help people tell their story and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it's there's just something powerful about people in creating those relationships and the opportunities that come about. And it's not just business, but like the opportunities and things that you wouldn't have done necessarily if you didn't have that.
Right. Yeah. And, if it was just me doing a publication, I mean, I don't have to meet anybody. I could do everything online.
Oh, yeah.
And if that was the case, I wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
It's about being with people. And really, that's what I loved about being a physical therapist, is having those relationships, being someone's cheerleader. But, as a person ages, it's like, I got to move on. And this happened on my doorstep in my lap. I'm like, okay, I guess I'm a publisher and an owner of a publication. Okay.
It's just one thing led to another, the next thing.
Okay.
The owner, the operator, the strategist, the marketer.
Got the spinning plates. I'm like, oh.
It's so nice. I love that. And because we've been talking about it, like that gap between being a physical therapist and now being an entrepreneur, and an entrepreneur with all these responsibilities. Mm-hmm. It's no wonder why you felt like the way you felt.
Yeah. Yeah. I was a physical therapist assistant. So really, I assisted a physical therapist that told me what to do. So, you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Big difference.
Big difference.
Yep.
So doing that for 27 years, and then becoming an esthetician, which doing facials and all that, which was great. I really enjoyed it. But this came around, and I was just like, my husband's like, you're on to the next sparkly thing. Like, I know, but maybe being an esthetician led me to this. Like, sometimes, I don't know, the grass can be greener. But in my case, I'm using a lot of fertilizer. A lot of fertilizer on that grass just to keep my sanity.
Have you ever read the book The Alchemist?
No.
Nobody's ever read the book. It's one of the best-selling books ever, which is so funny. Whenever I ask somebody, they say no. But really, really good book. And I think every entrepreneur should read it, because it really does tell that story of when you're going after your personal legend, when you're going after your purpose, your passion, or you're trying to discover that, and you're going after it, that the world does open up. The world does conspire to give you what you're looking for.
Manifestation.
However, it's not linear. It's not like you just wish it and then all of a sudden you're there. It's this life that takes you through these steps and these failures and these pitfalls. And then sometimes you get stuck on one level for a while, and then you see it. But it's these things that then lead us to, if we stick with it.
Right.
Book's phenomenal. I highly recommend it.
Yeah. I'd love to read it. That'd be great.
But it's like finding those signs in what you're doing and realizing that, there's going to be pain through this.
And I've always relied on my signs. I really have. I mean, my whole life. But then I found that before this, I would try to do a vision board, and I couldn't even see what a vision would look like.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I don't know if I lost myself, did I ever have dreams? I know I've always wanted to travel, but we never really traveled. So it was just like, you have kids, and then things kind of, you're just in the everyday, and then the kids are gone, and you're like, I'm not going to do this anymore because I hate I don't hate being a physical therapist, but I was just like, I'm done. It was over COVID. So
Yeah. Oh,
emotionally, I was
yeah,
done.
I bet.
And so it's just funny how, I feel like I've found myself through Stroll, just being in I don't know, giving differently and per se.
Giving differently, going through a lot of adversity.
Mm-hmm.
When we're going through hard stuff and we stick with it.
Yeah.
When we go through hard stuff and we stick with it, we learn a lot about ourselves.
Yeah. And, it's because I told you I'm a person completely that goes on signs. I had a dream about me and my son starting a nonprofit. And I've had many dreams about this, and I just didn't know how it would take form. And this last dream, I literally got up and I wrote it down because it was a vision. I know it was a vision.
Yep.
And so I'm going to be starting this nonprofit in January, and I'm super excited about it. And I think this could potentially be in every Stroll publication nationwide.
Tell me more about this.
So my son has, he's on the autism spectrum.
Yep.
And so for him, holding a job is very difficult. He's got a lot of health issues as well, muscular dystrophy and some IBS stuff. And so it's really, really been a challenge for him to work. So me being a business owner, I'm like, well, how can I find a space for Charlie to kind of have ownership of something that would aid in his, I don't know, his not livelihood, but value.
Yep. Sense of purpose.
Sense of purpose, exactly, perfect word. And so the dream was that he was a dog walker, which everybody can utilize a dog walker. And I've had a very difficult time finding a business that is a dog walking business. And so this dream came through as your pet's best friend. And I'm like, and that's what I wrote down, your pet's best friend. And I'm like, I'm going to do a nonprofit where Charlie, so the nonprofit itself will be a dog walking company in our Stroll. Okay.
Ooh.
And Charlie will be the dog walker, but the nonprofit part, whatever is given, will be either a portion. So it will either go to, say, La Casa or Bountiful Harvest, because they support families that want to keep pets in their homes. So most people who have to give up their pets is because they can't afford the dog food. It's $50 for a bag of dog food.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. And so that's my vision, is to create the nonprofit to help food insecure families to keep their pets with them.
Wow.
But also how this aligns with Stroll is our number one article nationwide is Precious Pet. And so this is a great opportunity for people in the community to take part in a nonprofit and to be highlighted, for us to meet more pets. And then, you have I do a lot of walking around town. People probably see me. I exercise by walking. And it really clears my head and I get a lot of ideas.
Yeah.
But
I can't believe we don't run into each other all the time. I'm always out walking.
And I was like, oh my gosh, we could do a dog walking marathon in the community. We could do all these things to kind of make it more of a cohesive community event.
Yeah.
And I'm like, remember Hands Across America? We could do dog walking across America. I'm just thinking of all these different cool opportunities. And I was telling my cousin Pam, she was a big person that got me involved in Stroll because she gets a Stroll as well, and in her community. And she's like, Christel, you got to do this. This is right up your alley. This is so fun. You love people. It's just a great opportunity. And so I was telling her about the stream, and her and I are 3 months apart. She lives in Virginia, but used to live in Michigan. And she said, when I moved to Switzerland, I wanted to write a children's book about our dog, Sprite. And it would be a children's book about the dog. And then it would be kind of like American Girl doll, where there would be a limited edition
Like figure. Yeah.
to go with the book. And she's like, I said, Pam, we have to do this. Like, this
That comes together.
what? It was so cool. And she's like, oh my gosh, a portion of the proceeds could go to your pet's best friend. And it's just like, I'm like, we're going to be on Oprah, but Oprah doesn't exist anymore.
Just come here. I've got a platform.
Yeah. I was just like, oh my gosh. So I'm super excited about it. I'm trying not to share it too much.
Yeah.
Only because, I want the company that I work with, I want it to be under my name. So
I love this because we're sitting here and we're talking about like the uncomfort and doing this thing and does it make sense? Like trying to see the vision. And then all of a sudden you've got this vehicle that really supports a really amazing cause that came out of your vision.
Yeah. And just part of something that I want to incorporate my son with.
Yeah.
And he belongs to the STEP program through LESA. It's off of Lasson Road, kind of, across from Meyer in that little strip mall.
Yep.
And so I'm there for his IEP, and I was still in the think tank stage of this, and I was running it past his teacher, and she's like, this is great. He could totally be an employee. Like, if you need more help, let me know.
We've got more.
Okay. And I told him, I said, yeah, if this gets big enough, I said, Charlie, you're going to be the CEO. And he goes, I'm going to be a CEO? I'm like, yeah. And so he was just like, really, me? I'm like, why not?
That's so cool.
Why not? Be
That's
the
so
person.
cool.
Be the front man.
I got chills. That's so awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that realization. I can only imagine how much that lights him up.
Oh, he's excited because now I said, now that you're my employee, you have to help me with events. We have to go clothes shopping because, you need to make sure your hair's done. And so it's really kind of like made him feel a little bit more like,
yes,
I am kind of a big thing now. I'm helping mom and I'm her employee. And so he's like, I love working with mom. So he's a sweet kid. Young man.
So
he's going to be 25.
Awesome. Isn't that crazy how quickly that happens?
Yeah. Yeah. And he hasn't wanted to drive at all. And I'm like, you're going to have to learn to drive because if you get a phone call that you need a dog walk, and he's like, okay. So he's ready to drive.
Oh.
So it's just like a birth of a thought leads to a wish, leads to, someone's divine meaning.
Absolutely.
And that's the part that I think has really made me excited to be a part of something that's bigger than me, but then to create something that's bigger than me that could be like huge. And it's not about me, it's about giving back.
And it's filling that giving back bucket in so many ways. It's giving back to Charlie. Mm-hmm. It's giving back to the community. It's giving back to people that can't afford their dogs. Mm-hmm. It's like that whole, it's a great mission all the way around.
Yeah. 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 So
that is so cool. I can't wait for a couple of years to have you back on and talk about have you and Charlie on and talk about how this is going.
I was talking to Gavin Johnson at the chamber. He was the principal at the high school, and we were in his office quite a bit with Charlie. And he's just like, Christel, this is amazing. He goes, you're going to need more help.
Yeah.
This is going to be big.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay. That's just that.
Well, what's really cool, and
what
I
you
know
need
this
to hear
pretty intimately, and I have a client, I think we talked about it briefly outside that I have a client that's on the autism spectrum as well. Mm-hmm. And he found a path where he loves sports and doing interviews. And so he created this YouTube page and he has 5,000 interviews of
oh my gosh,
high school athletes, pro athletes, college athletes, NASCAR drivers. he's everywhere, and it's really awesome. And so I've worked with him now for about 1.5 years, and a lot of it is just getting out of your head because you're told your whole life you have these limitations and you're not going to, even the people that love you, you're not meaning to do it, but so he's like trying, like getting out of his head. The thing being, and also my neighbors across the street, their son's on the spectrum, and just talking to people, like there's a constant worry of like, what are they going to do for the rest of their life?
Right.
Casey's big worry is like, I don't want to just work retail. I don't want to just do something that's menial. I want to make a difference.
Yeah.
But my whole life I've been told that, this is probably what I'm going to have to succump to, and I'm probably just going to have to do this. And,
Exactly. How do I make a living?
How do you make a living?
How am I being supported? And so, because it's been so difficult for Charlie to maintain a job, he does receive Social Security benefits now. So thank God. And that was the big push for me, was if something happens to my husband and myself, who's going to take care of Charlie? He needs something. He needs a backup.
Yeah.
So, it's scary. Obviously, his sister would help, but it's a big worry, being a small family, and, so.
So it's so awesome to be able to set him up with something.
I know.
This is so cool. But then and again, when Gavin's like, you need help, I could think of all these other people that have kids or adult people that are like, I don't have anywhere to go.
Yeah.
And to be able to then plug back in and have a purpose that's outside of, being able to walk, doing something that they love to do, that also then gives back.
Yeah. Yeah. And so he's super excited. He's like, when are we starting, Mom? When are we starting? I'm like, let's get you a driver's license, and let's get you a vehicle, and let's, do some things where, get everything in place. I know it's probably going to take a while for it to take off, which, it can be a struggle, but if it's completely nonprofit and just giving big checks away 6 months out of the year, that would be exciting. And then also it gives Oak Point a presence of being a part of something big, and it's originated here.
I feel like that'd take off in the community.
I think
so. Just putting a dog walker in there, I think would do really well. But then you put the story and the purpose behind it, and I think it'll just blow up.
Yeah. Yeah. So super exciting.
That's so exciting. So I love, I talked about yesterday in boot camp, how it's like when you have a goal in mind in the sense of like, I'm meeting with you because I want to sell you. Like I want a client. If that's my objective, I'm missing out on so much.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm only asking you questions to lead you to a certain point, right? And so to me, when I go out to meetings and we've talked about this, I want to know who you are and what's your challenge, what's you going. I want to know it all because that I can, because then maybe you're not my client. Maybe I can help you somewhere.
Yeah.
Maybe I can introduce you to somebody. Maybe there's a collaboration we could work on together. Maybe there's so many different opportunities there. And I think I said this yesterday, is like, if I go into a podcast and the reason why I don't have set questions other than I just love this back and forth, like we're having a coffee conversation. It's not scripted whatsoever. But the other thing is if I was just going in to get one story, there's stuff that I miss.
Yeah.
That was not on our agenda. And so to hear that's awesome.
I know. It's exciting.
It's exciting.
Yeah. It's so fun.
So kind of like, what is like your life, kind of leading up to this? We talked about, kind of adulthood and that kind of thing.
Are we talking about the story?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I love, I don't even have to after, I love when I don't have to even ask a good question and you just know.
I'm kind of like, I know that stuff. Anyways, yeah. So, only child. I was the only redhead in the family. Interesting enough. And funny thing that I didn't share with you is I probably am on the umbrella as well, because I was special ed kid too.
Yeah.
Putting that has nothing to do with the story.
Yeah.
But I remember one time I asked my dad, how come I'm the only redhead in the family? And he's like, well, there's a lot of redheads in our back lineage. And I'm like, okay. And then I said to my mom, I look look a lot like Grandma Miller. Everybody tells me I look a lot like her. And my mom said, yeah, I can see I look a lot like her. And I'm like, kind of conceited. Like, that's weird. Why would someone say that? And I remember that I was probably maybe 15 when she said that. And my dad passed away, like I told you, when I was 22. So he was 52. And last year was a tough year for me because I was 52. And I was just like, oh my God, he's so young. So young.
Isn't that so crazy? When you think about
Yeah.
22, you don't think about 52 probably being that old
Yeah.
or that young, but it's so young. Well,
Yeah.
I'm almost there. You're there. Like,
Yeah.
oof.
I'm 53 now. And I'm just like, oh, that was a real reckoning year. My chrysalis.
Yeah. Yep.
Changing. Anyways, so he died when I was 22. So, I kind of separated quite a bit from my dad's family, not on purpose. It's just, I think, something that just happens. And my mom, she ended up getting dementia in 2008. She moved in with us when the housing crisis was kind of happening. So then she moved to Somerville, and then, then a group home. And so it was like her memory progressively got worse and worse and worse. And she passed away in 2016. After that, I hadn't been taking care of myself, and I was having like really bad kidney, like high creatinine levels. I'm like, this is weird. Like, why? And so I asked my aunt, my mom's sister, I said, is there any kidney issues on the side of the family? And she's just like, no, there isn't, And I said, oh, well, I'm going to ask my dad's sister. And she's like, Chris, I'm going to tell you something that's going to change your life forever. Do you want to know? I'm like, I guess.
Having no idea what you're about to step into.
No. And my dad and I had a great relationship. I never once, was regretful of anything in our relationship. She told me that my parents struggled to have me, and they had been married, I think, 8 years prior, and they had tried those 8 years to get pregnant. And they ended up going to a fertility specialist, which is now considered sperm donor in vitro specialist now. But at the time, it was called a pregnancy specialist down in Detroit. And my mom thought that her doctor was the specimen used because her doctor had red hair. And it's just kind of creepy.
Wow. Yeah.
I know. So, how do you say this? I'm like, gut punch, crying. Who am I? This doesn't make sense. I know I was loved, but I felt lied to. A lot of feelings.
Well,
Big
then there's not
feelings.
even a way to have conversation because they're both gone.
No. And I knew that, in the moment, I knew that they loved me. My parents ended up getting divorced, and I would often talk to my dad because they didn't get along. And he's like, the one good thing that ever came out of your mom and I's relationship is you. And so I reflect a lot on that because I remember that conversation, just the struggle. Men didn't talk about that, being infertile.
Yeah.
It's hard for a man to talk about it now.
Let alone then. Yeah.
And so it was really considered taboo to even talk about it. And my aunt had said that when my mom would go to baby showers and go see a new baby, that she could just see the sadness on her face. And so that was, a huge part of, that welcoming a baby into your life type thing. And I remember my mom saying she was pregnant for 11 months. I'm like, 11 months? You're insane. Nobody's pregnant for 11 months. She's like, well, I remember the exact day I got pregnant. I'm like, who knows the exact day they're pregnant?
Your mom.
My mom knows. Yeah. So it's just funny, this is what, 6 years, I think 6 years after I found out. And so I knew that my dad's sister was on Ancestry.com because she's huge into like the family history, all that kind of stuff. I'm like, I'm just going to do it. Whatever it says, I'm going to be okay with. And so it was negative, and I'm like, okay. And then our father documentary came out. Do you remember that one?
No.
Okay.
Oh, is this the one where the guy was like literally using his specimen for all these?
The doctor down in Ohio. He has like
yes.
116 kids that are like 30-mile radius.
Yeah. And didn't they find out because 2 of them were dating or something like that? Or,
so they have to do a DNA test before they even start having sex, let alone getting married.
So crazy.
So creepy. So my daughter was like, well, before I did this, I did notice on Ancestry.com that there was a very close relative. And at the time, it said very close relative. It could be cousin, it could be aunt, it could be sibling, it could be whatever. And I was just like, I don't recognize this person. And you try to do a deep dive on someone that doesn't want to be known.
Yeah.
You can't find anything about them. I'm like, okay. So even through that, I'm like an open book. And I'm like, hey, by the way, my name's Christel. I live in Brighton. I've been here for, I think it was 18 years at the time. I have 2 kids that grew up in Brighton. I have a dog, cat. Been married for, 25 years. And just found out that, my dad was a sperm donor. And that maybe he's a doctor. Because that's what I knew.
Yeah.
And didn't hear anything. And I was just like, okay, I'm not going to pursue this anymore because she's probably like, wait.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's one of the, you have no idea what's on the other end. Yeah.
The crazy person. Okay. So I went on this retreat with my cousin, Pam. And she's like, Crystal, you got to tell your story. So I was like, I found out that my dad isn't my dad and, it could be a doctor. And so we were like, we're going to start a podcast and it's about my story. And so we were kind of like just doing Zoom, and we just put it up on just something fun.
Yeah.
Over COVID. We were just having a good time. And after that, my daughter's like, Mom, you need to do 23andMe. And I said, okay, so I'll do 23andMe. And because it was that Our Father documentary, she's like, Mom, what if the doctor was your dad? And I'm like, because I always wanted a sibling.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It was just like, I never wanted to be an only child. I always said I was a lonely child. And I'd say, Mom, please buy me a baby brother. I'd always want a baby brother. Or, how come you can't give me, why can't you buy that African boy? I want a baby brother. So creepy. I'm like, can I sponsor a baby? Oh no, that money goes towards, food for that child in Africa.
It's not that you're actually getting the baby.
I'm like, well, I don't want that. I wanted a brother. Just give me a brother. So I do this 23andMe, waiting for the results. And I still remember this. It was hilarious. My husband's a huge Marvel fan. Okay. Are you a Marvel fan?
Yeah.
So he wanted me to watch this She-Hulk show. I was stupid. Sorry. So dumb. So I'm on my phone. I'm watching. And all of a sudden I get a message through Instagram. Hi, you reached out to me through Ancestry.com. And I have answers about potentially who your father is. If you want to learn more, I would love to talk to you on your own time. And it's one of those things where, it's in your court. And I immediately was like, Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. And so she proceeded to through Instagram say all these things. And I'm like, so you're a sperm donor baby too? And she's like, no. And I'm like, what's going on here? And I was just like, I think we should talk because I'm so confused. She's like, my dad is your dad. And I'm like, what? Like, I couldn't even wrap my head around because here I'm thinking there's someone donating their specimen and that was the purpose. And then like, no, that's not the story. And so we talked on the phone. We sound alike, which was kind of cool.
That's really cool. Yeah.
And she said, figuring this out was kind of difficult because she had to ask her parents who are in their close to 80s, Dad, did you have an affair with this woman called Paula? No, I'd never cheat on your mom. Well, then you have to tell me a reason why there is a woman that is your child. And he said, well, we had gone to a fertility clinic down in Detroit. Your mom was trying to get pregnant and she couldn't stay pregnant. So she had many, many miscarriages, couldn't get pregnant. And we utilized the services and it didn't happen. And they ended up actually, I guess this clinic was chaperoned by a adoption agency. So they ended up adopting a little boy or baby boy. And so obviously there must have been fine print in this agreement at this fertility specialist, pregnancy specialist, because this was before donor registration. So donor registration, I think, was 76. This was 1970.
Okay.
And so her father must have given a sample, and knowing that, and this is kind of where the shady wild, wild west of how they had to have a registry, they most likely took his sample and gave it to my mom when his sample was supposed to go to his wife.
Wow.
To get her pregnant. So a lot of deceit.
Yeah.
And here I am.
Well, there's a reason, there's a purpose, but that's so crazy. And it's so crazy. You talk about the wild, wild west and just how many cases out there are like that.
How many me's are out there?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like stolen dreams almost, and there was a lot, she had said that there was a lot of regret using the fertility specialist because it was really expensive at the time. I'm sure it was a lot of money at the time.
Back then. It's expensive now. I can't imagine what it was then.
Exactly. And they weren't even doing in vitro at the time. This was just a sperm donation type thing where it was just cutting edge. And so when she found this out, she's like, oh, okay, my dad didn't cheat on my mom. But what makes this story so weird is that it's so weird.
I'm loving it. And I know how it ends. So I'm like,
it's just so weird. So me and my husband's an Army brat. He's an Army brat. So he moved all over the United States. He's lived everywhere. Where I kind of lived in Genesee County. That's where him and I met. We met up in Davison. And when we got married, we moved to Novi. And my parents lived in Davison still. And I was like, let's just move to Brighton. Let's check out Brighton and see, it's like halfway. Because at the time, it was like really hard, congested to get out of Novi.
Yeah.
Up 23. It was horrible.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay, yeah, let's look into it. And we found our little house downtown. And I was like, I'm never moving. Like, this is home. I'm never leaving. You're going to have to pull me out of here. And there's going to be claw marks.
That's how we feel too. Yes. Yeah.
My little tiny house in Brighton, I'm fine with it. And so as I'm talking to this girl that is
Your sister.
my
for all intents and
half-sister,
purposes, yeah.
I'm like, I have a sister. She looks like my daughter, just like her.
Wow.
We sound alike. Our hands look just the same. It's weird. We have the same stature. I've never looked like anybody in my family, which is the weird part.
So then you see somebody that is like a stranger that you're like, wow.
Oh, yeah. It's crazy. And so she tells me that she grew up in Brighton. And one of my sponsors, Presidential Cleaners, hey there, Steve. She used to work for Steve, and that's literally down the street from where I live. But she moved out of Brighton. She lives in Illinois now, in 99. And I moved into Brighton around 2001.
So you just missed each other there.
Her and I just missed each other, but her parents share half time in Florida and half time in Brighton. So I literally have lived 3 miles away from my birth father for 23 years and I've never met him. I'd
Still
like
to
to
this
meet
day,
him.
you haven't met him yet?
No. And that's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine. Because I know I was loved no matter what. But Sarah grew up in Oak Point.
How crazy is that?
It's insane.
So did you find out after this?
No, I knew before.
Okay.
And so when I was like calling her up and I said, yeah, the subdivision I'm supporting is Oak Point. And she's like, that's creepy. So funny.
Just again, and we talked about from the beginning it being kind of this thing that, reached out to you as soon as you had that conversation. And then it ends up being in this community, like we're talking about odds here. Like, just the
like
odds of that happening.
1 in a billion.
Yeah.
But now I know where my red hair comes from. And now I know why I am the way I am. So it's kind of funny.
Super funny.
So weird.
Such an incredible story.
Yeah.
It's so fun to go down that ride. But again, like out of all the possibilities, he's here in Brighton in this community.
Yeah. He doesn't live in this community anymore.
Okay.
But he used
was.
to. Yeah.
Yeah.
He lives probably, I don't want to say.
Yeah. But so interesting. That's just incredible.
Yeah. So here I am. Little Miss Sperm Donor Baby owning a publication.
Making it happen. And again, I've loved this conversation as it's progressed and talking about the dog walking and you and Charlie and, and we haven't talked a lot about your son. So to be able to dive into that a little bit was super awesome. But I'm excited for what you're building. And again, at seeing your story all come in this like full circle.
Yeah. It's super, super cool. Super fun. And just some aha moments along the way. I don't know. I've come into my mom always said, you're really going to come into yourself in your 40s. And that kind of happened. I was taking care of my mom and it was just like, but once I was done taking care of her and then going through that sorrow phase of losing her and then having everything that happened to me, because it's a road, right?
Yep.
And sometimes it's a lonely road, sometimes it's not. But, everybody's road looks different and the curves and the forks in the road are totally different. But, ultimately, if you're going to be on a journey, you have to make it a big story, I guess. Go for the fun stuff.
We only get one life.
Yeah.
We hold ourselves back from that fear a lot of times, of like what people are going to think about me. And at the end of the day, again, it could end tomorrow and we don't even know it. Anything could happen.
Totally.
I always think about my grandma. My grandma's like been the person who's given me the biggest permission to live, and not from the sense of her even saying it, but just watching her like be so afraid of what people would think.
Yeah.
And I like after she passed away, it was coming up to Christmas, and we were at my mom's house, and she like my mom was pulling out Christmas stuff, and we were helping her put stuff up, and she pulled out this thing. It was like little like wine bottle caps or like plugs, but it had like Santa hats on them. And my brother's a big wine drinker. My brother and my sister-in-law back then, especially. And so my grandma had bought these like wine stoppers with Santa hats on the back, on the end of them. And we pulled them out, and we were like laughing. They were so cute, so cute. And my mom was like, yeah, you know, she bought those for you, Jordan, but she didn't want to give them to you because she thought you'd think they were like, you know, she thought you would not like them or whatever, you know, whatever it was. I'm like, that's so sad.
Yeah.
That you would like hold yourself back from stuff because you're afraid
I thought
of
you
what,
would gift, but I was afraid what you would think of it.
and we're sitting there and she's not there to see it, but it was something that he treasured, you know, like something that, you know.
Aw.
So it's like one of those things. Don't leave it on the.
No, don't leave it on the table.
Don't leave it on the table.
Yeah. Yeah. That's definitely something, you know, you lead into your 50s and you're like, okay, here we are.
Yeah.
Like, when's life going to be? Well, life's happening, girl.
Happening.
Get happening.
And you're making it happen, and you know, going back and even talking about that, not leaving it on the table. You know, at the beginning, and talking with your husband, and you're like, I'm going to constantly think about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, you know, if you got something that you can't let go, you have to pursue it, and you have to like, okay, if you're overthinking it and, you know, thinking of all the ways that you could potentially fail, you know, you have to kind of like think differently. Like, this could change your life. And what's going to happen if you fail? Nothing.
Nothing really.
Nothing really.
Yep.
You know?
You can probably go back and get your job back, and you know, if you needed to.
Yeah.
You have a family that loves you.
Right.
You know.
Yeah. And if you're not trying for something that's bigger than you, I don't know. I never thought I'd work for myself. I'd always
Never
thought
had the
that
dream to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I always thought I would be working for someone, which is comfortable.
Yep.
You know, someone taking responsibility for everything.
Yep.
You know, now I'm like
doing it all.
I'm doing it all. Yeah. Yeah. So
It's so awesome. And, Crystal, this has been it's such a phenomenal conversation. I think it all ties together, and that, and just a message of don't play life safe, and don't just like coddle to your comfort zone, because our comfort zone, you know, wants to keep us safe.
Yeah.
It was there for a reason. It was protecting us from saber-tooth tigers, you know, like now it's protecting us from getting our feelings hurt or some little things that like, I'm not discounting feelings and emotions and those kind of things. However, like embrace that we have the opportunity to make something big happen.
Right.
You know, we're the only species that can wake up and decide to change our mind. Like a bird wakes up and has a duty to do all day long. It can't say like, you know what, I'm going to go watch the TV today. I'm going to go and make a difference in somebody's life. It doesn't do that. It's a repetition every single day. Like in nature, like we're the only creature that says, you know what, I'm going to change today. Yeah. I'm going to change my mood. I'm going to change my attitude. I'm going to change my perception on life.
I love that. Definitely. It's, it definitely
may not feel comfortable.
Yeah. No. And it didn't. Not every part of Ramp Up felt comfortable to me. Not one part of it. It was, you know, they say it takes 3 months. Not everybody is 3 months, but, you know, you have that. Oh my God, it's 3 months. I still haven't gotten there. Is it going to happen? Yeah. You know, there's a girl who just is going to print, and she's been doing this for 6 or 7 months. Her name's Jessica Parsons. Stroll, Sherwood Lake in Milford. She's starting up, and she got the go-ahead today, and it was so exciting to be a part of that, cool. Celebration email. Like, let's congratulate Jessica for, you know, going to print, because we all know how hard it is. So,
yeah. Mm-hmm. Do you get together in that? Is there a community there where you kind of, because you're all doing the same thing?
You know, we don't really all gather. You know, everybody's very busy doing
all their stuff. Yeah.
All their stuff. We have been wanting to do that, where we kind of get together either via Zoom or in person.
Yeah.
I would like, you know, our top sellers in our state to be able to hey, this is what we're doing. This is how this is going. Because it's a very supportive community. Like if there's anybody interested in, doing something like myself, just to know that you do get a coach, you're not alone, and being within, if it's in the Michigan area, we're all supportive of each other and help each one of our ramp up PPADs is what they're called, get to print. We're always like wanting to lend an ear, and they're like, how come you're not a ramp up coach? And I'm like, I'm not there yet. But I do, I've been through it, so I understand it.
Yeah.
What you're going through. But the potential for, being a business owner is there, and there's no, you're signing a franchise agreement, but you're not having to pay for a franchise. It's sweat equity.
Yep.
So for people that have the ability to say, I'm going to put my career on hold and do this, not try it, do it. Because as Yoda says, there is no trying, there's only doing.
Yep.
I hear him all the time.
That try word is my biggest pet peeve. It's one of those things like, being a lifelong Detroit Lions fan, I know when a coach is screwed because like we're gonna try to do this, we're gonna try to do that. Like,
Yeah.
Dan Cantwell came in and said we're gonna bite kneecaps and we're gonna take no prisoners, and we're like, this is the way we're going to be. It wasn't we're gonna try to do this and try to do that.
Yeah, there's no trying, there's doing. And so if there's someone out there that wants to do what I'm doing, I can help them with that. And we just have a great support system. I have a coach that helps me, a performance coach, and I talk to her every Monday. And we have meetings every Monday with, the whole tribe. We go to conference twice a year. So I've met so many great friends that I communicate with daily now. So it's really opened my heart to a whole new world, to get sappy. Love that song.
That's funny.
I won't sing it. I really want to. But, again, that community-centered type conversation and relationship building that's beyond this community, beyond the Brighton community, beyond the Brighton Chamber. It's all the people that understand what you do and, all the bumps in the road. So it's a great company.
It's awesome.
I
think I just came up with something of the title. This is like gonna be like strolling to your uncomfort zone or something like that.
That's a good one. Yeah, strolling into uncomfort.
Because that's what it is. And this has been an awesome conversation.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been fun.
Coming down.
And I really like knowing you.
I appreciate that. It's been awesome knowing you as well.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.